We need guidance. Since this is a youth program, the youth brain is not fully developed until at least 28. Different sections of the brain of any human being does not get fully developed. You see a difference when you become 13, 14, aren't you different from when you were 9 and 10? You suddenly find all this energy. You can actually now, you think you can decide for yourself. You start arguing with your parents about what's right and what's wrong. I want to do this and I don't want to do that. What's wrong with 1 extra hour sleeping in the morning? Or no, sorry, not 1 hour. 5 extra hours of sleeping in the morning. You just don't want me to sleep. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi mubarakan alayhi kama yuhibbu rabbuna wa yarda jalla jalaluhu wa amma nawaluhu wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil habib al-mustafa sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa baraka wa sallama tasliman kathiran ila yawmiddin amma ba'd. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. وقال تعالى فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله. وقال تعالى ولله الأسماء الحسنى فادعوه بها. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. So dear brothers and sisters, we're gathered in this masjid here on this day. These, mashallah, these ulama, they put this program together and invited you all, invited us all to be together and to speak about the spiritual life. The spiritual life, as has probably already been explained to you. I wasn't here to listen to what my 2 esteemed colleagues were able to say, so hopefully I'm not going to repeat anything and just bore you, or just bore you in general anyway. The whole concept of spirituality, right, is the most important aspect of our life, based on what the hereafter is all about. For this life only, if we ignore the life of the hereafter, then food is very important in this life, right? Because without that you'll die and then you're not going to last long in this world. Money is very important to live in this life. Otherwise, again, we're going to suffer. And safety is very important. Security is very important. But one of the most important things for us to be successful in the life hereafter, however capable, however successful, or however weak we were in this world, the ingredient and the component that is most important is spirituality. What exactly is spirituality? Spirituality is our morality. Spirituality is what we work for, what gives us a moral compass, which allows us to do things correctly and for a higher purpose, which allows us to become selfless rather than to do things purely for selfless reasons, purely for the sake of enjoying ourselves, meaning purely to enjoy ourselves. There's nothing wrong with enjoying ourselves. The Prophet ﷺ enjoyed this life. The Sahaba enjoyed this life. They just did it in a way that was selfless and for an ulterior motive and within the halal boundaries. So enjoying life, there's nothing wrong with that. The deen is not boring. Religion of Islam is not supposed to be something that's going to cause you to become weary and tired and so on and so forth. Ask the people who follow the deen correctly. They're not people who are considered to be boring individuals who are so dry in their life. Yes, you get some people who are dry, whether they're religious or not. Their natural demeanor is to be dry. They could be anybody. But religion is not supposed to be boring. It's actually very exciting. Right? It's actually very exciting. There's lots of things to do in the halal way. I was in Scotland 2 weeks ago. Approximately 2 weeks ago, I went to Scotland. And out of the 4 or 5 days we were there, there was only one sunny day. And that was on the 4th day. One day before we were going to return. Alhamdulillah, we finally got some sun. So now, do I go there and be miserable? And wait for the sun, which I have no control over? I mean, the sun was out, but it's not, there's clouds. And it's raining. So am I going to be miserable now? Yes, I would be miserable if I expected the sun to be there and it wasn't there. And then, but what am I going to do with that misery? What am I going to do if it creates anger with me? Who am I going to complain to? Who am I going to try to push to make sure the sun comes out? Nobody. So, what I did after the first day, as I said, you know what? The reason why Scotland is so beautiful, it was very beautiful despite the fact there was no sun, but in some countries it was even more beautiful. The greenery, absolutely different shades of green. Everywhere you go, rolling hills and pastures, and just different shades of green, absolutely natural. Remember, paradise is going to be green, right? I'm not saying Scotland's paradise in that sense, but so it was just so green and so lush and so calm and everything, but it was rain. And then that night, I just decided, you know what? I need to embrace this rain. I need to embrace the fact that this is what makes Scotland green. You couldn't have a green Scotland or green any place without rain. So let me embrace the rain. Let me just put a rain jacket on and just enjoy myself with the rain. And you know what? The next 3 days were amazing. Because I embraced the rain. It's like that's part of life. That has to be a factor within it. And then after that, it was beautiful with the rain. It's about perspective. Everything is about perspective in life. You have 2 brothers or 2 sisters, or a brother and a sister from the same family. One is able to wear the hijab and the other one isn't. She feels embarrassed to wear it because the family doesn't. The other one is quite bold. I don't care what my family does. Allah said so, I'm going to do it. So she goes about everywhere wearing hijab. And the other one, I'm not sure. I'm going to try. I'm not sure yet. What's the difference between these 2 people? They got the same parents, same family, same food they've had. What makes the perspective? So it's a difference of perspective. I think this is important. I think it's for the sake of Allah. That's why I'm going to do it. And that gives, whenever you do something for the sake of Allah, it gives you the strength to move on that nothing else can. Where did the Sahaba get the strength that they did? Where they were able to deal with all the different challenges that they had in front of them. Just mindset change. The mindset change is that I've got a life that goes beyond the 60, 70, 80, 90 years that this world is going to give me. The average age of people in this world, I've got a life beyond that. When that hits a person that's important for me, and that becomes more of a reality, that becomes stronger in our mind, that's what I want, then suddenly what we want to do suddenly changes. We're driven by our motivation. Human beings are driven by their motivations. What that means is, if you're, let's just say, 20 students enter university or college. Some of them have gone there because they just want to escape home. They want something to do because they know their parents are going to drive them crazy. Like, do something. So they just go college or they go university. Just to get away from home. To pretend they're doing something. Right? What percentage of the 20, I don't know. But there's going to be some of them, right? Is that correct? Then there's going to be some who are like, I need to go. I'm going to make it work. I'll get somewhere. They don't really have a full idea of what they want. But yeah, everybody goes to university, so I'm going to go as well. They're just following the crowd, not to escape home, but to do something, but they don't have a big idea at the end of it. And then there's some, they've got a big idea. They know where they want to be in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. Or at least they want to know where they want to be in 5 years. I want to finish this, then I want to do this, and I want to make this much money. Whether that's a good idea or not is different. Okay, I'm not talking about judging the idea, but the motivation. There's going to be, at least 3 groups. There's probably other ways to look at it, but that's at least 3 groups, right? And in some cultures, they go to university so they can get a degree, so they can get somebody to marry. There's some countries they go and become doctors, the women, so that they can get a good proposal and they never act as a doctor in their life, but they've spent 7 years just so they could get a good proposal from somewhere they thought was going to be valuable. Poor women. Allah not put anybody in that kind of situation. You have to waste 6 years of your life just so you can get a good proposal from who you think is good. Okay? Now, you know these 3 categories or 4 categories of people. Who's going to get something? Who's more likely going to get something at the end of it? The one who's motivated. They've got a role model. They've seen somebody else that they are following, that they worked hard. This is what the job they expect to get. That's where they're going to go. That's the way the dunya works. That's the way the world works. That if you have a motivation, you're more likely going to succeed. Sometimes you can fluke it in some other way. You just got lucky, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to benefit you. For example, I was in Canada a few weeks ago, about a month ago, and I visited a person I know, a friend, and he told me that his older 2 children, when they were younger, he used to invite their friends over. He used to invite their friends over, and usually in Toronto, in that area, they have big basements. Every house has, if you have a house, then you have a big basement. It's standard kind of thing. And they can do stuff in there. They can play around in there, play games, have a computer, have a, PlayStation, whatever. So I used to bring them in so that I can observe my own children and their friends. And I used to talk to my children's friends. What do you want to do in life? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? A lot of them had no idea. 10 years later, he says that a lot of those, my children's friends, come to me and say, we thank you so much, uncle, because we had nobody. Our parents didn't do it. Some people don't have the parents to guide them. That where do you want to be in 2 years? Why should you work hard? Where do you want to go after this? And where do you want to go after that? They didn't have that kind of parents, but he was the one. So he said, children need mentors. Mentors means somebody that can guide you step by step. Not guide you every day, but guide you about where you need to be and what you need to do now. And they come and thank him right now. That's so interesting. Because they didn't have parents or anybody who would do that, and they just happened to be the friends of this person, of this person's children, and he used to do that. We need guidance. Since this is a youth program, the youth brain is not fully developed until at least 28. Different sections of the brain of any human being does not get fully developed. You see a difference when you become 13, 14, aren't you different from when you were 9 and 10? You suddenly find all this energy. You can actually now, you think you can decide for yourself. You start arguing with your parents about what's right and what's wrong. I want to do this and I don't want to do that. What's wrong with 1 extra hour sleeping in the morning? Or no, sorry, not 1 hour. 5 extra hours of sleeping in the morning. You just don't want me to sleep. You just don't want me to enjoy myself, as though they've been there, done that. A lot of 13, 14-year-olds, they think they've been there and done that. They've experienced it. So they argue with their parents. Their parents are at least twice their age. They've been there and done that. And you think you know. It's very interesting to observe. Right? But it's very frustrating sometimes. Once a guy, he's got children who are older and he's got younger children. And he saw one of the older children trying to explain something to the younger children. And the younger child just wasn't getting it because they thought the way they were doing it was right. The older one obviously knew they were wrong because they'd already been through that age and they've had that experience. So they're getting frustrated. The older children are getting frustrated with the younger ones, younger brothers or sisters. And the parents said to the older one, this is the way you get frustrated with us because you think you're right now, as though you've all done it before. So you think you know it's right. That's the frustration you're happening with that. So among Arabia, in time of the Prophet ﷺ, they had a special meeting house, the Darun Nadwa, from before the time of the Prophet ﷺ. That was like their parliament. That's where the chiefs of the people of Makkah, they would meet from the different tribes and consult regarding their main affairs. They wouldn't allow, nobody could become a member there until they were 40 years old. They didn't think that you had enough insight and knowledge and experience until you were 40 years old. Forget 25, until you were 40. They only made one exception. They only made one exception in that whole history of that Nadwa, apparently. One exception, and that was for Amr ibn Hisham. Amr ibn Hisham. He had some special insight that they felt that they had to invite him in. The youngest MP, right? The conditions were that you had to be over 40, he's the only one. His name was Abul Hakam, but the guy was a big jahil, ultimately for the sake of the hereafter. He was very good for this world. They had to invite him in because even when he was less than 40, the only one they made an exception for. But the problem was that he didn't focus on the hereafter. He became Abu Jahl. The Prophet ﷺ called him father of ignorance instead of the father of judicial insight that he was originally called. So it's all about perspective and where you want to go and how far you want to go to. So the spirituality aspect is really the heart. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَثَلُ الَّذِي يَذْكُرُ رَبَّهُ وَالَّذِي لَا يَذْكُرُ كَمَثَلِ الْحَيِّ وَالْمَيِّتِ. The example of the one who remembers Allah and the one who doesn't is like the living person and the dead person. Is there a comparison between a living person and a dead body? Any comparison left? That dead person may have been the greatest person before, but now he's dead, he's finished. Is there any comparison now with this living person? This living person could become bigger and greater than. There's no comparison. So the Prophet ﷺ said that the one who remembers Allah and the other one who doesn't is like the living and dead person. What does that even mean? How can you be so different between the person who remembers Allah and who doesn't? Reason is that what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about is the heart. Because when you remember Allah, remember this spirituality I was talking about that's going to help us in the hereafter. That's the ingredient and the component that is the purpose of the hereafter. So the one who remembers Allah, his spirituality is living, it's not dead. He hasn't lost his morality. He hasn't lost his real self that's going to really benefit in the hereafter and take him to Jannah to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We run a class for women in German. So the German teacher, our teacher who teaches in German, convert, she was just talking to her students who are now women that are from different walks of life and they're studying the deen now. That how did you get into the religion? Why did you take this course? Because out of everybody there's only a handful of people, 15, 20 people that are taking the course. So what's your story? So this person is the person she's talking to is another German convert. And she said she's only 21 right now. She said that when I was much younger, I was doing everything there was to do to indulge myself, to excite myself, to enjoy myself. I was in a nightclub, a young woman nightclub. And she said, one day I found myself having lost my shoes and I don't know what part of her clothing or what, I can't remember the full details. And I found myself completely knocked out, drunk, helpless, with nothing to walk on, nothing to walk with, and so on, just completely lost. That's when I finally realized where this way is going to take me. And he'd already taken me to that, in that just complete hopeless state of despair. And for some reason she's not a Muslim, but she had heard from a friend who, Ya Allah, talking about God. She was not a Muslim, but she just called out to Allah. She just called out to God. Because when you're completely helpless, everybody has a bit of faith in them usually. Because we all come from the pure realm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's always a faith that eventually comes out when you're about to die. That's why Allah talks about people who are outsea, they're rejectors of God, deniers of Allah. But when the waves suddenly start rolling and they become as high as mountains, and you just suddenly feel the vulnerability that you are going to be taken into the water, you have to call on to something. Humans have this nature to call on to something. And they call on to Allah then. Even though they've been rejecting Him with their mind until now, the heart calls out because there's always a place for Allah. Everybody has a place for Allah. There's a fitrah for that. Right? So then she went home and then she remembered that there's a person she was with in school before who had become much different, had become sorted out, had become much more of a decent individual. Now she decided to call this guy. That what is it? I need to change. I've literally lost myself. I've killed my soul. Essentially, she was talking about spirituality. I have no spirit. I'm just physical body. I just eat, I just enjoy, and all of it is just to make my body feel good. Nothing to make me feel good inside as to who I really am. Because we're not just body. Because we have lifeless bodies that are dead. They're perfect bodies until they decompose. That's not what makes a human a human. What makes a human is what gives it life. And it's not just what gives it physical life, but what gives it life to think. And then to go beyond. Allah has created us for the hereafter. Allah has created us, and He's created for us Jannatul Firdaus. He's created the world, He's created that wonderful place, but He just wants to test us, He guides us, tells us what to do, and He wants us to go into this place. So, she called out to this guy, he told her, he gave her something, Alhamdulillah, she converted. The teacher is now saying that you can look at this woman today, 21 years old, you would never believe that she would be in a nightclub because of the way she has changed, and she's so much happy. The happiness that she's finding now in studying, in learning, in getting closer to Allah, that happiness is nothing compared to the happiness that she was getting, which she was getting. Because clearly you get happy when you get money. You get happy when you can buy what you want. You get happy when you can get the trainers that everybody else is wearing and you want. You get excited by these things. But how long do you get excited for? They keep making new trainers. You have to get the new ones. They keep making new phones. So you have to keep buying the next phone even though you don't really need it. People buy the next Apple phone even though it's just maybe 1 more megapixel on there that you don't really need. But you have to give your zakat to Apple every year, who don't really need it. You have to give your zakat. You have to give that donation to get that new phone so you can have bragging rights. That's the only reason. Otherwise, what else? So as a side point, I want everybody to really think about this, that our way of life, how we decide on what to do and what not to do, very simple. First rule is don't just follow everybody. Don't just follow the trend. Don't just follow what everybody else is doing. Until you have analyzed it, yeah, that's a good thing. I need to follow that. Why am I getting left behind? But not for bragging rights. Not like a sheep that just follows the sheep. Right? That just follows the leader of the, You have to be, simple word, remember this, you have to be functional. You have to be practical. You have to do things based on, is this going to benefit me? And if it's going to benefit you, then, and you got the money, you got the resources, then do what you have to do. If you need a particular car, right, because it has what you need, or what you actually need for your work or for your life or whatever, go get it. But if you're getting that car because everybody else, like everybody started buying these Range Rovers, these big bumbling boxes, right? And I just didn't see the point. It's just a status symbol. Sorry, Javed bhai. Right? You don't deal with them anymore anyway. It's just, I just see things around and people are just following the trend just because everybody else. So within, you guys won't understand this, but within our first generation, when you got to a certain level, you had to buy this big, thick, chunky Rado watch. You don't have one, do you? Right? MashaAllah. You had to buy this really thick Rado watch just because everybody else had one. Don't do that. If you need it because it's functional for you, go ahead and get it. Get a better one. But if you don't need it, then don't do things for yourself. That's the simple rule of life. You need something, you get it. You need something in your house, it's functional, it's going to fulfill a purpose. MashaAllah, spend money. If you got the money, spend it. Just don't do it because everybody, otherwise you will be a slave for the rest of your life. Well, what do you mean slave? We don't have slaves anymore. Slave of different types. Slave of new things that everybody else is. So I feel I must have it. Become independent. Your criteria should be Allah. Your criteria should be utility of what you need. Otherwise you kill your heart. Because then you'll just be following others because your heart wants to feel that you also have something. That means you're not satisfied with who you are. We are not our own people. That kills our spirituality. Then we just have to follow everybody else. Yes, it's difficult to do that, to go against or to do your own thing, to have to listen sometimes. Why don't you have one? SubhanAllah, there's some friends who will tell you like, why don't you get one as well? They make you feel bad about it. Whether you're still a youth or whether you're an adult, there's some people that would make you feel like, why don't you have, we all have one, why don't you have one? And I don't think it's beneficial for me. You have to be confident. You know what kind of confidence you need? If there's a guy who is in the corporate world, he's got a good job and he has to take different clients and he has meetings to get big business deals for his company. So he takes a non-Muslim client for dinner or for lunch, and they come to order and he says, would you like a cup of wine? Now, you're not allowed to drink wine or beer. So how do you react to that? Sorry, I just can't have beer. He acts like such a bichara. Like, I wish I could, but you know what? I can't have it. I can't have wine. It's not allowed in my religion. I feel so bad. You know, you don't actually say that, but the way we react is you're going to make it seem like that. The guy's going to think, what a poor guy, man. Like bichara, you know, he can't drink. You're missing out. It gives you such excitement, calms you down, you know, makes you feel good. He's going to feel bad for you just because of our reaction. That's just an example. It's an extreme example, right? On the other hand, when it came to that, you're like, no, I don't drink because, you know, I just don't drink. Drink, and you don't have to say you're Muslim, that's why you don't drink. You say, I don't drink because drinking is like what causes all the problems in the world. So you know what? I just don't drink. Drinking, you get drunk and then this, and the guy is going to look at you in respect like, wow. You know, because everybody drinks and you don't drink. So it's like, mashallah, people respect people today who can abstain. You know, like, no, I got control of them. People respect people with control. Otherwise, everybody else is just normal. We just do whatever everybody. So they respect you. So we have to have an attitude. But you can't do that without confidence. You need to be confident in what you know, in what you believe, to become a high-valued individual. A high-valued individual is the one who has principles. A high-valued individual is the one who stands up for his principles, who's willing to positively, wisely express himself and express the light that he has among all the darkness. And we Muslims are so lucky that we have this spirituality which, believe me, the world wants. We just don't present it in the right way. Now, when you have access, if you've got wealthy parents, if I'm talking to the young guys, you've got wealthy parents who have sorted out a lot of your issues, so we can just enjoy ourselves. It's very different now, right? If you've got wealthy parents who can supply you with everything, you can get the toys you want, you can get the shoes you want, the trainers you want, the clothing and the jackets and the phones and whatever you want. Then you just feel like you can just get everything. You don't have a value for these kind of things. And then it kills your heart because you're not getting it for the right reason. You're getting it for the wrong reasons. I'm not against having good stuff. Have good stuff if it's going to be functional and beneficial for you. Don't get it because others are getting it. Don't get into that race. And you will become such an independent individual that you will be confident in your own way. You will have your own course of life. But you can't do that without learning more about our religion. More about Allah, because Allah is the only factor that can stabilize us. Allah, belief in Allah and knowledge of Allah is the only thing that can guide us, that can give us the strength and conviction that we require. Without that, we can't. And many of us, we're Muslims, of course. I mean, we're all Muslims. And we believe in Allah, but we don't know Allah. We just don't know Allah. So what do you mean you don't know Allah? I know Allah is one. I know that, but is that enough? Do you really know what it means that Allah is one? I don't think so. What it means that Allah is one means that there is no one else, nothing else that can do anything like Him. That's what it means. Just as in fact that it's not just that, oh, there's no other Allah. It means that Allah is unique, absolutely, in, of course, who He is. That is only one. That's, of course, that's uniqueness. But also in what He can do and what others cannot do. It's absolutely unique. However, a lot of people are treating money as though that is what empowers our life. Money does to a certain degree, but only because Allah made it like that. But ultimately, Allah is the one who provides the resource for it to happen for some people and not for other people. So money is important, but it is not God. We can't worship money. It's like, who worships money? Who puts the worship money as an idol? Put, £100 there and just worship it. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Worshipping money doesn't mean you worship in the sense of pray salat to it or make some signs and gestures towards it. It's what we believe as to who's going to help us. I'll give you an example. My wife used to teach younger children in America, and there's these new 2 children that came, 7 and 8 years old. They'd never been maktab before. They're from a Muslim family. My wife was discussing Allah that day. Allah is the greatest. He is the mightiest. He can do whatever He wants. Nobody can stand in front of Him. He's the most powerful. Suddenly one of these kids shout out, Power Rangers. Because for them, when the description of the greatness, for them their mind went to Power Rangers. Because that's what they haven't been taught about Allah, though they're Muslim. That's what I mean, that when you are in need, are you going to think of your money? Or are you going to think about Allah along with your money? It's only Allah who can empower us to do anything, who gave us the money in the first place, who gave us the ability, capability in the first place to do whatever it is. That's the spirituality, is consciousness of Allah. That ultimately is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gives everything, who's given us the money. Of course, He uses money. Money is used in this world to do good things and to do bad things. But ultimately, everything is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But without knowing Allah, we can't understand His true oneness. We can't understand that He is behind everything. He's the only one who can source anything for us and provide the resources, provide the power, provide the ability, and provide the success. And He's the one we're going to need fully in the hereafter, because we'll have nothing. In this world, there's a world we have where we feel that you can help me and he can help me and my money can help me. But in the hereafter, we're going to have nothing. You're going to be naked. So they say on the day of judgment, the way we're going to rise, because what's going to happen in this world when we die is that our body decomposes. Our body decomposes, if you know what that word means, decomposes, and you're just left with like a small particle somewhere of our body, from which Allah on the day of judgment will recreate as a fresh body. Our soul will be the same. Our soul will be the same, but we'll have a new body. The soul will be the same, it will be a new body on that day. So now then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question us. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send us to wherever He needs to send us, paradise or hell. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be in paradise so that we can see Him in paradise. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us a new body in the hereafter. But when we're recreated in the hereafter, we're going to be hairless, beardless, clothless. But nobody's going to be looking at anybody. That look at them is, when you're in such a concern and worry about what's going to happen, you don't care about anybody else. It doesn't matter. When you're really worried about something, you can have the best food in front of you. I'm not interested today. Right? Classic burgers. Right? Chapli kebab. I'm too concerned that they're usually appetizing, but not on that day. Because they're actually really good. You didn't tell me to promote it, but they're actually really good. Your chapli kebab. Gujaratis can't make kebabs usually, but you guys have done it, man. Is it because you got an Afghani working for you or something? Is it because you got Pathans working for you or something? Okay. Good. You got Pakistanis here, right? Gujarati logo ko paratha nahi banana aata hai. They get those cheap ones from the stores and they just do them at home. Right? Gujaratis have a lot of other good food though, don't think you're better in that sense, but you know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's just to lighten the mood. So, on the day of judgment, that's what's going to happen. And then there's going to be the decision of where we're going to go. It's the heart that matters. It's the heart that matters on that day, the spirituality that matters on that day. What did we do? Why did we do it? These are the kind of questions. So now what we want to do is, one of the biggest challenges that we're having today, that parents are just, especially with teenagers, the parents are just absolutely at their wits' end, is the social media, the phones. It's like, phone is a necessary evil. Is the phone a necessary evil? Is the phone necessary? But is it an evil? Yeah, not sure. Yeah, it is, right? It's just, what do you do with that? So I want to tell our young brothers and sisters that the problem with the phone is that it's too addictive. Human beings never were programmed. So let me give you an idea, right? Simple thing. How many TikToks do you see in 1 minute? Usual person, if you start on TikTok, how many TikToks will you watch in a minute? Just a rough number. Give me a rough number. Okay, safely 10. It's probably more than that, but 10, right? 10. Do people just stay on TikTok for a minute? No. Like half an hour just passes in no time. Let's just say somebody spends an hour on TikTok. That's 60 minutes. Or let's just say half an hour, 30 minutes. So if in every minute you see 10 TikTok videos that are all different, about different things, so in 30 minutes you would have seen how many? 300. 300. I just want to show you that this is not human. Which human being in history, the whole of history of thousands of years since Adam alayhi salam, focused on even 10 things within an hour or within 30 minutes? We're talking about 30 things here. 300. 300. Your mind is looking at one thing, then another thing, then another thing, then another thing. 300 things in half an hour. Can the mind even do it? Do you remember? How many of those 300 do you remember at the end of it? Maybe one or two that were like a bit unusual. But yet you just want to do it. That's not natural. Our ancestors, human beings, never did that. The most you can focus on is a human being. There'll be one person, another person, he's like a very busy person. He's maybe a person in a council or a person in charge position of something that he has to deal with one person, two people, three people. But you just don't look at 300 things in half an hour. Humans have never done that. Can that be natural? Can that be beneficial? Can it be useful? Well, you would know, because you're watching 300, you're not getting anything out of it. And that's even if you stay on there for 30 minutes. 2 hours, easy for a lot of people. Okay, forget that. In history, forget history now. Today, how many times does a regular, some general person look at themselves? Of how they look? Men or women? How many times do they look at themselves? Today, we've never had a generation, we've never had in our history that people who looked at themselves and what they look like as many times as people do today. Because it was too complicated. You'd have to go to the river edge. You'd have to fill a bowl with water to look at yourself, or get a polished metal or steel or something, right? A polished silver, and then find this weird picture in there because it's not so clear, right? Until glass and mirrors were invented. But even that, a mirror somewhere, unless you carried one with you like a crazy guy. If there was a person pulling out their mirror all the time, you'd think they're crazy, right? People do that with their phone, but you don't think it's crazy. Because it's become normalized. Now people are looking at themselves, they're not just looking at them, they're actually taking a picture of themselves 20 times a day. Is that healthy? Is that human beings? Has humans ever done that? Okay, what's wrong with it? You might think, well, what's wrong with it? Why can't I take a picture of myself 20 times a day? Reason is that if that was going to be useful, Allah would have created a long time ago, the idea. The only thing you're doing is you just keep focusing on what you look like. And if, maybe touching up your makeup, making sure it's all straight, putting yourself out there. We have people today who can't have a relationship. They've broken all of their relationship. They can't have a relationship with anybody. They're drinkers. They are addicted to drink or drugs. But they still have the most followers online because they look good, they're attractive because they put a lot of perfume on and they dressed in provocative ways. And they can maybe sing. So they have more followers than other leaders of the world. Okay. Do you and I want to be part of that same following? These are same individuals. And then yet there are parents who think that some of these singers are really good examples and role models for their children. All they're focused on is that they're going to make a lot of money by the way they look. Or by the way, they can prance around. Or by the way, they can jump around. Is that a career? Is that an end all? But this is, I'm just trying to say that this is just going to expand itself. This is just going to become more easier with the way technology is. And mashallah, there's some really good uses of technology. But this stuff is just very difficult for us. So my simple message at the end of it is, let us develop our spirituality, which means our ruhaniyah. And that means let us understand who we are and why we are here. And let us focus on the hereafter. That we're ultimately, as all human beings, we're going to have to meet with Allah. And there's a great world out there. There's a great paradise, gardens that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, where you will never get bored, where you'll have whatever you want. Simple example, in this world, if you enjoy something, right? Let's just say you enjoy a certain fruit, like mangoes. And you get a box of mangoes, ultimately, thak jate hai. You'll have to wait for the next day to eat the rest. Otherwise, how many honey mangoes, jonsa, are you going to eat? You know, chalo, you can eat 2 boxes, but ultimately it's like, chalo, choro man, that's enough. Let's eat the rest tomorrow. In paradise, you'd think that if you're going to live forever, then what are you going to get in paradise? Aren't you going to get bored because it's just too much good? The way Allah has designed it with our psychology in mind is that you will never get bored. If you want to literally eat mangoes for 20 days or for a month or for 20 years, you will keep eating them. Every bite you take, every slice or every piece, however you want it, it'll be presented to you and served you. It will have a different experience. It will have a different experience. Every bite you take, every morsel will have a different experience, and there's no end to experience. In this world, nothing stays forever. Everything gets worn out, expires, gets old, rots, ages. Nothing remains forever in this world. Nothing. Soil corrodes, mountains, they also, lose their surface area, everything. That's just the nature of this world, because the world is eventually going to end, so everything on a small level always. That's why, but in paradise, because it's forever, everything in there is designed to be enjoyable as many times as you want. But ultimately, we're going to have to be patient in this world to get that. And this is proven by the angels when they enter, when we go into paradise. So when we enter paradise, Jannat insha'Allah. From every door, the angels are going to come. And they're going to say to us, as Allah says in the وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ يَدْخُلُونَ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ كُلِّ بَابٍ. The angels are going to enter upon them from every door, and they're going to be saying, Salamun alaykum, Salamun alaykum, Salamun alaykum. This is not that greeting we do, like, Assalamu alaikum, how are you, brother? It means peace be upon you, well-being for you, happiness for you, safety for you, all of the meanings of Salamu alaikum. Why is he saying that? To try to reassure us that this is not temporary resort you're going to that you've paid for a week and you're going to have to eventually go. It's going to end. No. To tell you it's now forever. Salamun alaikum. Salamun alaikum. Can you imagine? I just can't wait. May Allah give us that tawfiq, that the angels are coming and saying, look, you can just be relaxed now. Just relax. Just relax. Take it easy. You're in here forever. You're here forever. But then it tells you why. And they tell everybody why. Salamun alaikum bima sabartum. Because you were patient. Because you had fortitude. You had endurance. You didn't do what everybody else was doing wrong. You persevered for the right reason. Yes, it was a struggle. You struggled to stay on the right path. Stay away from addictions. You struggled away from what everybody else was doing to enjoy themselves, and it was wrong, so you didn't do it. You had to listen to a lot of criticism. You had to feel left out. You had to feel like, I don't have the friends anymore because I'm thinking differently. All of that is the sabr and the patience. You used to wake up for prayer. You used to focus on life in the right way. You used to focus on Allah, and you'd realize what Allah was. That's your patience. That's your perseverance. فَنِعْمَ عُقْبَ الدَّارِ. What a wonderful abode now you have won. So there's something at the end of it. I just wish we could see a brochure of it. some pictures of it, get a taste of it, then it would make life easy. We can't. There's a description of Jannah, of paradise in the Hadith and the Quran, right? I've put them all together. I've done a series on the delights of paradise. You can check it out on Zamzam Academy just to get an idea as realistic as that can be, right? But nothing can actually create. How can you create something that's going to be a new delight? So if I look at something beautiful, eventually I get tired of it, right? I have to give my eyes a rest because that's just the nature of the world. But in paradise, you won't get tired of anything. I'll give you a simple example. I have some cousins. They went to our village in India and they took one of our extended relatives who had hardly been out much to any big city. They took him to a 5-star resort in Goa or somewhere. Okay? They took him to a 5-star resort in Goa or somewhere. That guy, they said he did not speak for 1.5 days. He was just dumbstruck, like, which world have I come into? Never seen anything like it, from a village to not just a city, but a 5-star resort where it's just, he was just speechless, because that's what happened to human beings. That's when people enter paradise, it's just going to be speechless. What's going on here? Right? That's paradise for us. Allah has, with a lot of thought, for Allah it's easy, but He's thought of everything, He's prepared it from centuries before. And He updates it, even though it doesn't have to be, you haven't even seen it yet. But He's so happy that He wants to host us. He can't wait to host us. In this world, we're His slaves. In this world, we're His slaves, so we just have to do what's, as a slave of Allah, we have to do what He tells us to do. In the hereafter, though we are still slaves, but we're actually His guests. And He's the host. And you know when you get good hosts, have you ever had a good host? You really enjoy it because they know how to host you. They know exactly what. A good host is the one who hosts you with things you like. They know exactly what you want and they give you the best of what you want and you really enjoy yourself. And Allah knows exactly what we like, what every human being likes. Can you imagine His hospitality? We're going to get that, as the angels tell us why, is because you had some struggle in this world, but you persevered. There was difficulty, but you know what? You had the conviction to carry on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that strength. It's difficulty because we got just so many challenges and distractions that make us heedless, that make us go astray, turn our focus away, mislead us. Ya Allah help us, Ya Allah help us. We're tired of fighting against this shaitan. Grab us by the forelock and just enter us into paradise. Just write that we supposed to be in paradise. Allah make it easy for us. Ya Allah make it easy for us. May Allah accept this program. May Allah accept from our Maulanas who, mashallah, set it up, from the masjid and allowing the facility. May Allah bless everybody here and everybody who's listening to be one day, inshallah, in paradise, so that we can go and meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the whole purpose of it. May Allah make it easy. Allah give us the strength to deal with the difficulties here. May Allah make it not difficult. May Allah make it all easy. Change our paradigm, change the way we think of things, so that we enjoy doing it, despite the struggles, that we enjoy doing it. And it gets exciting. Just like, despite the rain, I was able to enjoy the place by just changing the perspective of what I wanted. If you have false expectations, wrong expectations, unusual expectations, you just don't get anything out of it. Let us do it in the right way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. The point of a lecture is to encourage people to act, to get further. An inspiration, an encouragement, persuasion. The next step is to actually start learning seriously, to read books, to take on a subject of Islam and to understand all the subjects of Islam, at least at their basic level, so that we can become more aware of what our deen wants from us. And that's why we started Rayyan courses, so that you can actually take organized lectures on demand whenever you have free time, especially, for example, the Islamic Essentials course that we have on there, the Islamic Essentials Certificate, which you take 20 short modules, and at the end of that, inshallah, you will have gotten the basics of most of the most important topics in Islam, and you'll feel a lot more confident. You don't have to leave lectures behind. You can continue to leave, to listen to lectures, but you need to have this more sustained study as well. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.